Runs in the Family, Chapter 5, Self-Care. Tell me what you eat, and I will tell you what you are. Are we active enough? In the first half of the book, we looked at our own behaviours and environment to see how we can change it. We can only change the parts of our environment we have control over. We cannot change other people. As we're accountable for each thought that we have in each mood, stopping these negative thoughts and replacing them with positive ones will transform the world around us. The more responsibility we can take for our relationships, the more we can look at the impact of our behavior without blaming ourselves. Seeing our child's behavior as a reflection of ourselves gives us back our power to create lasting change. We can take many actions around our health to ensure we improve our own mood and concentration, as well as that of our child. Everyone needs to take care of their well-being, especially to ensure that our emotional health and mental health are robust. All families have some disposition towards one type of illness or another, such as heart attacks, diabetes, or cancer, for example. As I've said, my family has a tendency towards mental health difficulties, which means that we must be aware of our health, fitness, and what we're putting into our bodies. Have you noticed that people who have mental health difficulties, as a rule, are also extremely intelligent? The fact that we have these illnesses in the gene pool must mean that the people who have them and their genes are very attractive. Family members who have a tendency to have mental health difficulties, anxiety, stress, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, ADHD, etc., they're all intelligent and they must take care of their brains. And in this and the next chapter, we will look at the importance of eating the correct foods as well as the best type of exercise to promote our well-being. The UK guidelines recommend that a child takes 1 hour of movement every day. But at this moment, only 9% of our kids are getting their recommended amount of exercise. What is more common is that children are spending 4 to 7 minutes a day moving around and 7 hours in front of a screen. Studies have shown that children who play outside are happier, more attentive, less anxious than the children who stay inside more. Also, children who engage in moderate to vigorous physical activity between the ages of 6 and 8 have fewer symptoms of depression 2 years later. Moderate exercise includes cycling, gardening, dancing, jogging, playing tennis, swimming, low-impact aerobics, and walking. Exercise has been shown to decrease muscle tension, release feel-good chemicals, and improve brain functioning, combat behavior disorders, and boost emotional well-being due to the endorphins that are released during exercise. Endorphins are chemicals or neurotransmitters that send electrical signals around the nervous system. They're made in the brain, and their job is to fight pain and fight stress. A very useful chemical to have in abundance in our bodies, I think. How much exercise is your child taking right now? If your child is spending 40 minutes each day moving around, then you can increase her activity by week by 5 to 10 minutes. As adults, we are recommended to walk for 40 minutes a day. And this doesn't have to be all at once. You can take a 10-minute walk 4 times a day if you wish. You can spend time playing with the kids and become physically active as a family, taking hikes, cycling, walking, or skating. Let your child cycle to school and allow them to have active time after school. Which activities does your child like doing? Is it swimming, football, basketball, dancing, gymnastics, or others? Or creative outlets such as writing, playing a musical instrument, or dancing? Attending classes together can develop new skills and be lots of fun, as well as improving the relationship you have with your children. How many minutes a day do you and your child or your children take moderate activity? Do you already walk to school in the morning? Or is that something that you could start doing now? This week, continue to record yours and your child's mood 4 times a day. What do you notice? Are there any changes in your mood? Also, what about the mood of your child? In chapter 5, I spoke about a young boy, Jem, who refused to leave the house for 1 year. He went to school sometimes, but as he found it difficult to leave the house, he stayed more and more in his room. Within 12 weeks of providing Jem support, he was attending full-time school and going out on small outdoor excursions, at first only with his mentor, then gradually on his own and with his family. In addition, James started to play football again, and so was exercising for the recommended 1 hour a day. His mood transformed and his depression lifted. Now, Jem continues to be more sociable. He's attending college, training to be an engineer, as he always wanted. Making sure that you're moving around every day is crucial because within 2 weeks, the effects of this activity can be compared to taking an antidepressant. Feeding our brains the right food. We have looked at the importance of maintaining our brain in tip-top condition, which is crucial to promoting our well-being. When we have been gifted a brain that is more active than the average brain, we need to spend time and effort giving it the best treatment and fuel possible. There's much research on the genetic link between intelligence and mental disorder, and also links to suggest that depression decreases intelligence. Whatever the story, we must feed our brains with the correct food for it to provide us and our loved ones with the mindset we need to live well and have the lives we dream of. Today's Western diet is full of processed food that are going to damage our children and their physical and mental health. I've seen our kids at dinner time buying McDonald's, fish and chips, and other processed foods that don't have any nutritional value and damage well-being. I'm not saying that they should never do this. It's just important to balance these foods and not eat them all of the time. Both our well-being and mental illness are influenced by diet. When comparing the Western diet to that of the Japanese diet, studies show that the Japanese way of eating prevents depression by up to 35% due to their diet of unprocessed foods, fermented foods, and natural prebiotics. We will talk about the importance of prebiotics in this chapter. So what foods are better for our brains and why do we need them? What can we eat to make a difference now? Vitamin B. Vitamin B plays an important role in manufacturing brain chemicals that affect our mood, assisting in nerve growth and development, improving communication between nerve cells, and providing emotional and mental energy. Low levels of B2 and B6 and folate, vitamin 9, have been linked to anxiety and depression. Vitamin D. Vitamin D, or the sunshine vitamin, plays an important role in bone health and has recently been important for other areas of health also. Vitamin D is found on the surface of cells, instructing them to act in a certain way, for example, to die or divide. Vitamin D can be absorbed through the skin depending on your skin tone. You need more exposure to the sun to get your quota. 10 minutes is enough for fair complexions, with up to 1 hour exposure for darker skins. Absorption of vitamin D assists with the absorption of calcium, helping to build stronger bones, teeth, and muscles. Several studies have shown that seasonal affective disorder, SAD or SAD, may be due to the change in level of vitamin D, which impact the serotonin levels in the brain. While I think that your 40 to 60-minute daily walk will generate enough vitamin D for you and your child, respectively, these foods can help boost your vitamin D. Fish like salmon, sardines, mackerel, and tuna, raw milk, caviar, eggs, and mushrooms. Omega-3 oils. Omega-3 oils build brain cells, cell membranes, and reduce brain inflammation, both important to make new brain cells, improve mood and memory, and protect us against brain disorders such as dementia and depression, as well as reducing symptoms of ADHD in children. Omega-3s improve focus and the ability to finish tasks, and they decrease hyperactivity, impulsiveness, restlessness, and aggression. Low omega-3 levels have been reported in people with mental disorders, but supplements can reduce the frequency of mood swings and relapses in people with schizophrenia and bipolar, as well as decreasing violent behavior. The following foods have sources of zinc: salmon, flaxseed oil, that's cold pressed, walnuts and walnut oil, fish roe, mackerel, which is oily fish, oysters, soybeans, spinach, eggs, egg yolks, halibut, herring, trout, and tuna. Which foods do you eat already? If you eat 4 of these 8, then that's a great start. It would be great to eat fish twice a week, which can be cooked pretty quickly with minimum preparation. Zinc. Zinc is an essential mineral that is found in our brain in higher quantities than anywhere else in the body. Deficiencies of zinc can lead to symptoms of depression, ADHD, difficulties with learning and memory, aggression, seizure, and violence. Zinc cannot be stored in the body for long periods of time, so it's important to eat zinc on a regular basis. And the following foods have sources of zinc: lamb, pumpkin seeds, grass-fed beef, chickpeas, cocoa powder, cashews, mushrooms, spinach, and chicken. What foods do you eat already? If there are already 4 of these 8 foods in your diet, then that is a great start. Calcium deficiency is strongly linked to depression. Calcium. Calcium deficiency is strongly linked to depression. It is well known that calcium is really important for strong teeth and bones, and also our heart muscles and nerves need calcium to function. However, calcium is also important for regulating mood and has sedative and calming effects. Calcium needs to be consumed with fat in order to be used in the body. So, for example, normal full-fat milk is a good source of calcium, but the calcium in a skimmed milk is a waste, as the calcium will not be absorbed. The following foods have sources of calcium: almonds, Brazil nuts, dairy products like milk, yogurt, cheese, sardines, flax seeds, leafy dark green leaves such as spinach, kale, turnips, collard greens, green snap beans, broccoli, cooked okra, and Chinese cabbage. Which foods do you eat already? If there's already 4 of these 8 in your diet, then that is a great start. Here are some other foods that really make a difference. Eggs are great because they have omega-3 oils and zinc to keep us alert and energized in order to regulate our metabolism and sugar level. Avocado has the B vitamin folate, which is great to fight depression, tryptophan to boost our mood, and vitamin B6 to relieve stress. Sweet potatoes have vitamin B folate to fight depression. Folate acid, vitamin B12 is important for pregnant women and all of us, as it's important in making new cells, hair, skin, nails, and in supporting liver and red blood production. Folate is found in leafy green vegetables, spinach and kale. Yogurt with calcium is important, and it eases mood swings and eases depression and anxiety. Nuts such as walnuts and almonds, flax seeds, olive oil, fresh basil, oily fish, salmon, trout, mackerel, anchovies, and sardines all have omega-3 fatty acids, which decrease the inflammation that cause arthritis, asthma, heart conditions, and certain types of cancer. What is the link between the stomach and the brain? The latest research is showing that the stomach and the brain are much closely linked than previously thought. Our state of mind is connected to our gut because our gut uses the same chemicals as the brain and communicates with it. Our brain works hard day and night without rest and needs optimum fuel to help us with our moods. The best fuel that impacts our mood is a neurochemical transmitter fuel, serotonin. Serotonin helps us sleep, inhibits pain, regulates our appetite and mood by inhibiting or limiting inflammation. But how can it be that 90% or 95% of serotonin is produced in the gut if it fuels the brain? Our gut can be called a second brain as it influences our mood and our well-being. And the microbes and the good bacteria in our gut play an important role in making serotonin. Therefore, we need to take good care of our microbes and make sure that we have lots of them at all times. So, how can we do this? What is good bacteria and what is the difference between good and bad bacteria? Another name for good bacteria is probiotics. Probiotics have a beneficial impact on our bodies because they prevent the bad bacteria from entering our bodies through the lining of our intestines. In addition, they break down foods so we can use them in our bodies, produce several nutrients, including vitamin K and vitamin B6, B12, niacin, and folic acid, and help us absorb calcium and magnesium. Therefore, we need to ensure that these nutrients are absorbed in our bodies, building strong bones and muscles. Bad bacteria, on the other hand, can cause upset stomachs, bloating, swelling, and wind. In addition, the bad bacteria causes chemicals that damage or produces chemicals that damages the intestine lining, resulting in leaky gut, which allows bacteria and other undesirables to get into our bloodstream and impacts our moods and the way we physically feel. Studies have also shown that an excess of bad bacteria can make us fat. Obese and diabetic patients have fewer good bacteria in their gut. If we're not careful with what we eat, we inadvertently kill off the good bacteria and feed the bad bacteria, causing a misbalance in our gut, which impacts our moods. The trick is increasing the good bacteria and decreasing the bad, which we can do in 3 ways. The first one is cutting down eating foods that may be harming us. The second, eating more of the foods that increase the good bacteria in our gut. And the third one, taking a supplement to do the same thing as eating the right foods to increase the good bacteria. Cutting down on eating foods that may be harming us. Cutting down on certain foods that may be harming us is definitely a good start, as these foods increase the bad bacteria and destroy the good bacteria. What are the foods that are harmful? Crisps, ready-made meals, chocolate, refined sugar, high fat, dairy, cakes, biscuits, sweets, ice cream. These have refined sugars and are harmful to our brain, impairing its function and worsening mood disorders. Which foods do you eat already? If there are already 4 or more of these 8 in your diet, then you'll need to reduce them week by week. Eating an occasional treat, maybe once a week is okay, but too much really does have a negative impact on your well-being and the well-being of your child. Eating more of the foods that increase the good bacteria in your gut. What are the foods that we need to be eating to increase that optimum fuel in our brains? Some sources of good bacteria are asparagus, garlic, onions, firm bananas, legumes such as chickpeas, lentils, and kidney beans, vinegars, probiotic foods such as Yakult, fermented foods such as sauerkraut, pickles, and kimchi. Prebiotic supplements. Taking a supplement to increase the good bacteria. Taking a supplement can do the same thing as eating the right foods to increase the good bacteria. And while there are many places you can buy them, I do advocate gaining levels of good bacteria through healthy eating, as you are modeling the behavior you wish your child to adopt. Which foods do you eat already? And if there are already 4 of these 8, then that's a great start. Perhaps you already cook regularly using garlics and onions and cook vegetables to eat with other foods. If so, good job. If not, choose a minimum of 3 of these foods that you can include in your diet this week. I'd say a probiotic drink and would be a great start, as children love them. Putting it all together. So, putting all of this all together, how often do you eat as a family? Once a day or more, or once a week or more? There's many research benefits of eating as a family, including increased communication and well-being, modeling table manners, expanding your child's knowledge of foods, consuming more nourished meals, becoming self-sufficient, preventing destructive behaviors, improving grades and financial savings. Communication and well-being. Sometimes mealtimes promote conversations throughout the day, learning from each other and giving your children extra attention, warmth, security, and love, as well as a feeling of belonging. The experience of eating together can be a unifying experience for all of the family. Modeling table manners. Family meal times are the best time to model table manners, meal etiquette, and social skills. Keep the mood light, relaxed, and loving. Try not to overtly instruct or be critical. Expanding your child's knowledge of foods. Expanding your child's knowledge of foods by encouraging them to eat without forcing, coercing, or bribing. It's best to introduce a new food alongside some of the favorites. Remember, it can take 8 to 10 exposures to a new food before it's accepted. So be patient. Trying a new food is like starting a new hobby. It expands our children's knowledge, experience, and skill. Here's your opportunity to try new dishes using the ingredients that we're spoken about in this chapter. Ingredients that will promote well-being. Your child can choose a new recipe from a food cookbook, website, or magazine. Nourishing meals. Meals prepared and eaten at home are usually much more nutritious as they contain more fruits, vegetables, dairy products with additional nutrients such as fiber, calcium, vitamin A, C, and folate. Home-cooked meals are not usually fried or highly salted, plus fizzy and sweet drinks consumption are usually low at the dinner table. Becoming self-sufficient. Becoming self-sufficient is a great advantage, as many children are missing out the importance of knowing how to plan and prepare meals. Understanding basic cooking, baking, and food preparation is a necessity for being self-sufficient. Involve your family in menu planning, grocery shopping, and food preparation. If your child is attending nursery, they can attend lettuce, cut bangs, or set the table. Older children can pour milk, peel vegetables, and mix batter. Teenagers can dice, chip, bake, and grill. Working as a team puts a meal on the table faster, as well as making everyone more responsible and accepting of the outcome. Improving eating habits comes with ownership of the meal. Prevents destructive behaviors. Research shows that frequent family dinners, 5 or more a week, are associated with lower rates of smoking, drinking, illegal drug use in teens and teenagers compared to families that eat together 2 or fewer times a week. Even as older children's schedules get more complicated, it's important to make an effort to eat more together. Scheduling, as spoken about earlier in this book, is a must. Improved grades. Children do better in school when they eat more meals with their parents and family. Teenagers who eat dinner 4 or more times a week with their families have higher academic performance compared with teenagers who eat with their families 2 or fewer times per week. Saving money. Meals purchased away from home cost 2 to 4 times more than prepared at home. Today is common that due to scheduling, commitments, activities, families eat out several times a week. However, eating breakfast together is a great way to start the day, to speak about how you feel, to gauge how your child feels on the mood meter. So eating together without the television, if possible, is a great way to evaluate how the day has gone, especially after school, and it can really punctuate the end of the day. You may not be able to do this every day as you may have constraints with work. Also, allowing your child to contribute to making the meal in some way will also contribute to the enjoyment of the meal. If this is the case, make an effort to eat together as often as possible. By preparing meals together, your child is also taking responsibility and will also be more likely to cook for themselves when they're independent. This is just as well as the nutrient content is much, much higher. Sharing dinner together can give a sense of identity, ease day-to-day conflicts, and establish traditions, memories, and behaviors that can last a lifetime. We have seen in this chapter that the foods that promote mental health, we have seen in this chapter the foods that promote health, mental health, and well-being. As I said in the beginning of this chapter, the Western diet is known for its richness in over-processed foods. The impact of a poor diet is well documented and increases the risk of cancer, diabetes, and heart conditions. It is crucial to know these same foods have a detrimental impact on our moods and mental health, with mounting evidence to support this every day. We're living in a fast society and raising our children in these conditions. It is important that we set them up to survive and flourish. Cooking together using the foods discussed in this chapter would be a great thing to do, as you also bonding emotionally and spending quality time with your child. Putting in place even one or two of these tips will make a big difference in your lives and set your child up for the rest of his or her life. Chapter 6. What are your key actions to avoid or drop? The truth of the matter is that you always know the right thing to do. The hard part is doing it. What can I drop now to make a difference? This chapter will outline a few of the major players here, the things that we do that don't really help with our well-being, have a negative impact on our relationship with our child, and are modeling behaviors we don't want our child to adopt. Taking drugs and alcohol. Life is fast, and many of us have had things happen to us in the past that have been difficult to get over. Sometimes we turn to our friends for comfort, but if this isn't always enough for us to overcome what we're dealing with, it's commonplace in our society to find ways of taking away the pain. This may include taking substances like heroin, marijuana, alcohol, or prescription drugs to help us through. After being a victim of physical assault, I struggled with accepting it and made it mean all kinds of things about me. Smoking marijuana became a way of numbing the pain and escaping from my own thoughts. It took stopping drugs to come to the realization that it was something that happened way in my past and it wasn't happening now. So I didn't need to continue anymore. I know it's a difficult situation and it's a tough one, because when we do this, we're modeling to our children that it's okay, and it isn't. We're showing them that it's okay to take substances to overcome pain instead of focusing on the situation, talking about it and resolving it. Subduing our emotions and feelings to help us deal with trauma then takes us away from being effective and close with our family members. So it's important to overcome this. When we learn to do this from a young age, it is a behavior that we can use for the rest of our lives and gets passed down from generation to generation. It also means that we're developing who we are as people and growing to the next level, stepping into our power. Don't get me wrong, it's all too common to take substances to alleviate the pain. This is actually what society subtly encourages us to do, with examples of celebrities like Amy Winehouse, Elton John, Michael Jackson, and Whitney Houston, all abusing drugs and or alcohol to help with mental anguish. So how do we stop? We can't do it on our own, as we'll find ourselves going nowhere. There's plenty of research that tells us that when young people are exposed to talking therapists, for example, they have fewer depressive symptoms than teens that had no treatment whatsoever. When we're holding on to our own stuff and not resolving it, it stays in our minds and seems to grow into something else, a bitterness, a resentfulness and fear that we can't even see in our lives. We were supporting a mentee in her family, Jessie. And Jessie, she just turned 16 years old, just finished taking her GCSEs and was about to go into sixth form. Her family had noticed that her behaviour had changed and she was more distant from them, spending more time in her room and on the internet. After being supported by a mentor, Jessie explained that she'd gone to a graduation boat party to celebrate with the rest of her year group and drank a little too much alcohol. And because of that, when the boy asked for them to go to a quiet area to talk, Jessie agreed. He forced her to have sex, and Jessie, overcome with alcohol, passed out. When she recovered, and she wasn't sure how much later, she was alone. She pulled her clothing together and returned to the boat party, keeping what happened to herself. As a result, she was blaming herself for what happened and the fact that she had drunk too much. Jessie's low opinion of herself reflected on the mood meter, where she ranked herself in a high state of anxiety. Through guidance, she was able to see that because of drinking alcohol, she'd been unable to make good decisions, and that in future, she should not drink at all so she can make decisions with a clear head. We're also able to support Jessie in speaking with her family about this to enable all parties to accept that they weren't to blame. Now Jessie has started university and is doing very well, and the family have dealt with the situation and been there for their daughter. But can you imagine, however, if Jessie hadn't said anything and continued to live her life? What decision would she have made about herself with something like this happening to her when she was so young? What decision would she have made about men? What impact would this have made on Jessie and her future relationships? This is an example of how some of the incidents that happen to us as adults we don't talk about, that we don't resolve, and over which we end up taking substances to help us deal with the pain. Then the longer we leave the incident unresolved, the more grip it has on our lives, even though its impact is invisible to us. One outcome I have seen happen is that a woman who has experienced trauma as a child or a young adult makes a decision about herself and a decision about men. But how does this work when she has children? How does she behave when her son's growing into a young man? Does she realize that the way she's treating him is based on a decision she's made from her past that isn't resolved? It is my reckoning that if there's an addiction to something, then you must look in the past for a trauma that you've experienced and not had support with. For you to grow emotionally, it's good if you can take that out of the closet and deal with it. It happened when it happened, and the threat that was there then isn't there now. Because the actual threat has gone, we're left with our memories, which can be so painful that we feel like the trauma is still happening. We must be patient and allow these memories to heal and forgive yourself, because in doing this, you can heal and begin to move forward without the painful memories holding you back. Things are happening to us all the time, and it is our choice whether we wish to hold on to them and give them power to influence our lives in the present, or whether we forgive ourselves, forgive the other person, and be in the now with our family members and give them our full love, free from bitterness, sadness, regret, and upset. After all, what did they do to deserve that? And don't they deserve the best version of you that you can be? Also, living as a victim is no fun. It's tiring having to behave as if nothing has happened when something very big happened. We all go through our lives like this, and this takes up a lot of energy to put up with this pretense. Being a victim is hard work and takes up a lot of energy. We usually choose distraction to stop us from dealing with it, such as shopping, eating, drinking, or taking drugs, for example. But that's not who we really are. And furthermore, when we're being this way, the falseness of it all is being modeled to our children. Wherever we are a victim, there's a loss of power. Reclaiming that power can give us a feeling of peace like we've never had, with no need for substances to help us cope. But how can we deal with this in a way that moves us forward, giving us more peace and happiness in our lives? and the lives of our family. There are many things we can do. And here I will look at the things that I have seen cause great transformation in people in their lives. Things that can really make a difference in our lives, other than the things that we've spoken about so far. Many of our decisions in life are made because we draw from our own knowledge, belief, and understanding. Because we make many decisions from this place, we can be limited sometimes, and we keep on doing the same thing, expecting the results to be different. For example, we can tell our child in a fit of anger that they're good for nothing and they won't come to anything, and this would propel them into action. However, if we continue doing this, then that young person will believe it to be the truth and make your words to be the beliefs they have about themselves. But what if, for example, you have an unresolved incident in your life, a rape, a sexual assault, a physical assault, that you haven't resolved in yourself? And furthermore, what if you made that decision from that moment on, that all men are rubbish, or that men only want one thing, or that men are only good for one thing, or men cannot be trusted? Your son will see exactly what you think of men through your behavior and mannerisms. After all, when you made the decision, you didn't stop think to say, "Except my children." After all, boys and men are the same, and you would consider them a threat. Now, you can't see that in yourself. It's a blind spot. How can we find out about ourselves if we can't see it? Looking at the behavior of others around us is a key, as it will always reflect our behavior. And if we're still having difficulties in our relationship with our children, it may be because of something we can't see that's in our blind spot. Have you ever been able to clearly see a fault or behavior in somebody else's life and wonder why they can't see it themselves? That's because you can see things much more objectively, but they can't because it's in their blind spot. In the same way that you can see blind spots in your friends and family members, and you have them too. However, have you ever tried to tell your friend or family members about themselves and their behavior? Have you found that they listen? I'd advise you not to say anything to anyone unless they ask you to tell them what you think. Normally, if people don't see their own blind spots, they don't see the solutions and the way through to resolve that area of their life. So, for example, with Jessie, she started blaming herself, a place of no power and blame, but changed to seeing that in the future, that she would watch what she drinks, as this would influence her to make unwise decisions, which is a place of power and responsibility. This is something that could have been in her blind spot had she not told anyone else about what she'd been through and kept it inside for years. We have looked at the impact of blaming our children and others for things that are happening in our lives. We know that this way of thinking is disempowering and restrictive. As a way of giving us power, we can see the answers in the behaviors of others and adopt ways and attitudes that enable us to grow emotionally. Also, seeing the impact of keeping things in our lives unresolved, the last thing to discuss here, and certainly not the last or the least, is that if you have a tendency to blame others in your life, and why not, as it gets us off the hook of being the author in our own lives, it's probably that you're blaming God as well. After all, if we blame God for our situation, that means that we stay stuck in the same position and we don't progress. Why would we be blaming God for something when a tragedy happens in our lives, a bereavement, an accident, when we have no control? We blame God. After all, it's his fault, isn't it? However, this would be like blaming a friend if you have no relation. How could you blame your friend if you had no relationship with them? In a similar way, how can you blame God for something if you have no relationship with him and you don't understand him? Here again, blaming God is a great way of not to progress in our own lives as we put the blame firmly at his door, with an impact of becoming bitter and twisted as we deal with the consequences of our actions and behavior. Today, we're in a blame culture. Governments blame other parties and governments for things that are happening. Divorcing parents are blaming each other for their behavior. And children are blaming teachers and schools for the knowledge and education of our children. We do this as it's easier to look at what's missing in somebody else or something else. However, this isn't the type of thinking that will forward the conversation and give us the emotional growth that we want and need to be those models to our children, that legacy that they'll pass down to future generations. In the next chapter, we'll look more deeply into ways that we can maintain actions and behaviors we put in place to continue to grow and develop, giving you the life that you said that you wanted in the first chapter.